All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody this afternoon. Public meeting dealing with planning issues. And first off, I'm going to ask Ashley, anybody that is zooming in, that's a new piece of equipment for you. You can get it operated.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Eccles. Before I begin, at any point, if you get disconnected, you can dial 1-647-558-0588 and enter the ID for this meeting, which is 891-5626-2480. Both member of council and staff have been briefed on the various features of the Zoom meeting software and will be raising their hands physically to speak. For members of the public, if you require any technical assistance, please send a chat message to myself, Ashley Noble, Communications Coordinator, and I will attempt to assist you. It should be noted for members of the public that this meeting is taking place across two meeting platforms, both on Zoom as well as being live streamed on YouTube. Public participation, if any, must be done through Zoom. It cannot be done through YouTube at this time.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm going to ask, is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof from any members of the committee? Just for the public's acknowledgement, Councillor Shea is absent today because of another commitment, and Deputy Mayor Hutchison is on Zoom. So, okay, no declaration can be declared at any time. Our first public meeting is dealing with zoning amendment 11/2024, concession 443-530, concession 8. I have a couple of announcements to make, requirements. First off, I would like to remind everyone that the purpose of this public meeting is to receive input from the public. Every person who attends a statutory public meeting required under the Planning Act shall be given an opportunity to make representation in respect of the proposed bylaw. All submission materials for this application are available at the West Grey Municipal Office during regular business hours. If a person or a public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the municipality of West Grey to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or written submissions to the municipality of West Grey before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or a public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grey before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Okay, that's my formal aspect of it. The clerk, Mr. Eckensweiler, you have a few recommended requirements to discuss.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Notice of this public meeting was circulated to the prescribed bodies posted on the subject property and mailed to all properties within 120 meters of the subject property on May 28, 2024. Anyone wishing to provide verbal comment to this public meeting is asked to sign the sign-in sheet located on the speaker's table. The personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and the Municipal Act. The information collected will be used to complete the zoning bylaw amendment process and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to me, the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Grey and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the Municipality of West Grey, care of the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk.
Thank you, Jamie. And the second will be presentation from the Planning and Development Department. Mr. Smith. David.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you mentioned, files at A11/2024 from Mr. Elders. This application before council is for a zoning amendment to, and it follows on the heels of 3 consent applications heard by the West Grey Committee of Adjustment slightly earlier this year, files B05A, B, and C, to create 3 rural residential lots, a severance from a property currently operated as the Ferns Golf Resort. As I mentioned, those 3 lots to be created will require rezoning, which is what this public meeting is regarding, and the three lots that we are looking at will be rezoned to a special residential, rural residential, agricultural residential zoning to recognize the small size of the lots, and for two of the lots to have one of them will have restrictions regarding the requirement for a archaeological assessment and some restrictions on a building envelope, and a second one with some restrictions on the location of the building, again from restriction with natural environment on the property for some of the trees. Overall, the lots are relatively large, but they meet the requirements of the OP, but we'll get into that a little later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, David. This time, we'll make it a presentation from the applicant. Very good. Any comments from the applicant and or public? Do we have anybody online, Ashley, that is wishing to speak to this? Quiet. Okay. The staff report is there. If there's no questions or comments from anyone, the staff report is there.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I'll ask maybe Ashley to bring up page 17 of 50 from the PDF. That will give you a look at the draft zoning schedule, at least for the property, and see
Okay.
the various areas that I've mentioned. Just to give you a brief outline on the property, you can see the OS 2221-H. That is the will be the quote unquote retained lands after the severance. The OS 221 is of course the golf course. The 221 and the H was a request by the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation for a archaeological holding on the property. If new buildings or structures were to be constructed, they are asking for archaeological consideration in that regard. The OS 221 also at the moment will remove the current approval for a hotel on the Fernan Golf Resort and revert a bit back just to a golf course with clubhouse and those other things that go along with a standard golf course parking lot, buildings for maintenance and so on and so forth. The three lots that we're talking about, or today's zoning amendment, is the A2512, the A2507, the A2508-H, the NE and the NE2 in the upper northeast corner of the property. Those three lots are what were reviewed by committee of adjustment for the land division earlier this year. The zoning conforms to those draft lot lines that we looked at that time. So the A2507 and 512 and those numbers reflect some of the slight variations in the zoning we require for lot frontage or using natural environment lands as part of a lot area, things like that. The A2508H is a very specific building envelope within that portion of the property. The conservation, sorry, not conservation authority. We have significant woodlands up in this particular area of the township, and the Green County Ecological Planner said we could waive the EIS, but if we could do a little bit to try and preserve some of the woodlands up in this corner of the property, which is why we're getting both an NE and an NE2 in that far right-hand lot. The NE2 is, I guess you could say, more drastic than an NE. It's actually no clearing whatsoever, whereas the NE is some standard forestry it would be allowed. And then, of course, we left a building footprint, which is an actual cleared area that exists today as part of the A2508-H. The H is also applied on this particular chunk of the property from a request by Saugeen Ojibwe Nation for a scoped archaeological review of that particular corner. Scoped archaeological is certainly well within their purview to request when it meets certain conditions established by the province. This property as a whole does meet the conditions. They're not too worried about the two other lots, but that one in the upper northeast corner, they did request for a scoped archaeological assessment be completed prior to the removal of the H. A scoped archaeological assessment starts basically with a paper review to see what is the history of the property, what is the history of First Nations activity within this particular area, to see whether or not there's any need to go on to additional stages of archaeological assessment. And we leave that up to the archaeological people and the registration of that with the province. Thank you.
Thank you for that, David. Any other questions before I ask for a mover and a seconder then of the recommendation? Would anybody like to move that? Councillor Townsend and Councillor Noon, thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? Just for clarity, this is going to move us to preparing the bylaw. Jamie? And that would be on the next council meeting. Correct. Okay. All right. Any other questions on the motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Have a great day, Harold. All right. Brings us down to zoning amendment 12, 2024. I have some required announcements to make. We're on to this one, Osterhouse on the Baseline Road. I'd like to remind everyone that the purpose of this public meeting is to receive input from the public. Every person who attends a statutory public meeting required under the Planning Act shall be given an opportunity to make representation in respect to the proposed bylaw. All submission materials for this application are available at the West Grade Municipal Office during regular business hours. If a person or a public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the municipality of West Grade to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grade before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed or the official plan amendment is adopted, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grade before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed or the official plan amendment is adopted, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Ashley, anybody joining us out there, you can inform them how they can participate virtually. Please.
As noted, at the opening of the meeting, public participation must be done through Zoom. Members of the public joining virtually wishing to participate in this portion of the meeting may do so in one of two ways. If you have joined via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. This will let us know that you would like to speak. Alternatively, *9 can also be used to lower your hand. If you've joined virtually, you can either raise your hand by clicking either the blue or yellow hand icon located in the bottom corner of your screen, or by sending a chat message to myself, Ashley Noble, Communications Coordinator, either stating that you would like to speak or what you would like read into the record on your behalf.
Thank you, Ashley. And comments and notices from the clerk. Jamie?
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Notice of this public meeting was circulated to the prescribed bodies posted on the subject property and mailed to all properties within 120 meters of the subject property on May 28, 2024. Anyone wishing to provide verbal comments at this public meeting is asked to sign the sign-in sheet located on the speaker's table. The personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and the Municipal Act. The information collected will be used to complete the zoning bylaw amendment process and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to me, the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Grey on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the Municipality of West Grey, care of the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk.
Thank you, Jamie. Presentation from Planning and Development. Mr. Smith? David.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I'll ask Ashley if you go to page 31 of 50 in the PDF, please. This is the draft zoning schedule for file as of 8/12/2024 for Osthaus. The proposal here is rezoning to permit an accessory detached dwelling. That's the term that I use, ADD, accessory detached dwelling on the property, which already has an existing house on it. The location of the accessory detached dwelling is quite important, both to the province in terms of keeping houses and farms and accessory dwellings such as this within a farm cluster or a building cluster. So what we have here in the photo blow up is the existing house just a little bit to the left of the A2, and the A2 509 zone is the area where the accessory detached dwelling would be allowed to be constructed. The remainder of the property, you can see, has multiple zones on it, an A2 510-H and an A2 511. Those are holdovers from the current zoning on the property, which requires a EIS, at least on the 510-H portion, before it can be, the H can be removed, and the A2 511, which prohibits another apartment or semi-detached being added to the property in terms of the existing house. So we will have two houses on the property. That's going to be it. Not two houses and an accessory apartment or things like that, but the two houses. So that's where the additional special zonings on the property come from. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, David. Is the applicant here? Not online, I don't believe. I'll take comments from the public. Is anyone online that wants to, that would like to speak to this application? Maybe the next one. Okay. Any questions or comments from any of the committee? Then we do have the staff report. Do we have anybody that would like to move that? Thank you, Councillor Forrester and Councillor Hutchison. On the floor, any debate on or questions on the motion? Seeing none, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay. Then we're down to the third application on today's agenda. And that is zoning amendment 13-2024, 504081 Gray Road 12. And we'll open this part of the meeting, and I have some formal comments to make. I'd like to remind everyone that the purpose of this public meeting is to receive input from the public. Every person who attends a statutory public meeting required under the Planning Act shall be given an opportunity to make representation in respect of the proposed bylaw. All submission materials of this application are available at the West Grey Municipal Office during regular business hours. If a person or a public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the municipality of West Grey to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grey before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grey before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Thank you. Ashley, anybody that's joining us online, can you give them instructions, please?
If you have joined via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. This will let us know that you would like to speak. Alternatively, *9 can also be used to lower your hand. If you have joined virtually, you can either Raise your hand by clicking either the blue or yellow hand icon located in the bottom corner of your screen, or by sending a chat message to myself, Ashley Noble, Communications Coordinator, either stating that you would like to speak or what you would like read into the record on your behalf.
Thank you, Ashley. And we have some required notices from the clerk. Jamie, please.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Notice of this public meeting was circulated at the prescribed bodies posted on the subject property and mailed to all properties within 120 meters of the subject property on May 28, 2024. Anyone wishing to provide verbal comments at this public meeting is asked to sign the sign-in sheet located on the speaker's table. The personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and the Municipal Act. The information collected will be used to complete the zoning bylaw amendment process and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to me, the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Gray and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the Municipality of West Gray, care of the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk.
Thank you, Jamie. One of these days, you're going to get it down where you can do that in 2 breaths, not 5. Presentation from the Planning and Development Department. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll ask if you go to page 48 of 50, please, in the planning. Yeah. There is no zoning schedule with this particular application. It's this is the current zoning on the property, A2-17. You can see overlaid over top with the air photo. The green on the photograph is the natural environment following a creek and a small pond within that area. As you can see, the building structures and so on and so forth that we are talking about. You can see the kind of the house and a barn on the top edge, okay, and on the south part or whatever it is, the closer to the roadway is the existing on-farm diversified use that's going on the property. The closest houses you can see down on the bottom towards Gray Road. In that regard, there is some separation of distance between the current uses and the proposed uses and the existing residential uses themselves. We go to page 43 of 50, please. Thank you. Very tough to see other than in your planning report itself. But this is the site plan proposed by the applicant and their consultant. And the distances from the proposed buildings and so on and so forth to both property lines and to existing residential uses. Those numbers, of course, are very important to us considering the proposal in this particular case is to add a metal working shop or metal fabrication shop to the permitted uses on the property. Therefore, enjoyment of abutting properties is still very important to us in that regard from a noise perspective in particular. Purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment application is to amend the existing site-specific A2-17 rural zone exception to include a metalworks and machining shop doing custom metalworking, which includes welding and forming, together with the existing welding and hydraulic repair permitted use. The A2-17 is for welding and hydraulic repair. We'll be adding this additional use. The A2-17 zone permits a home industry, also referred to as on-farm diversified use, or OFDU. The amended zoning would permit an expansion to the gross floor area of the shop to 400 meters squared, with the entire OFDU, the shop, the outdoor storage, the parking, the loading area covering 2,000 square meters. The OFDU would be located beside the current shop. Again, on this particular photo, that is the red square box you can see north of the pond on the north side of the treat area. Current shop would be used for agricultural storage. It's not being added to the OFDU. The closest residential dwelling in this particular case to the OFDU, the building itself, is about 168 meters. We circulated the application to both agencies and to the public. We received no concerns, no comments from West Gray Building and Public Works. Westgrave Fire does mention, of course, with all buildings need to meet the interior building code, especially when you're dealing with sparks and other things like that. And that'll be taken a look at during building permitting if it gets to that stage. Grey County Planning Ecologist has no concerns with the treat area or with the wet area through the property and the natural environment. EIS was not required. County Transportation did also take a look at the property, the existing entrance, the entrance onto Gray Road in this particular case, to make sure that it's adequate, that it has the appropriate approvals, and they have no concerns with the proposed addition or change to the land use. Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority didn't have any issues either with the property. Public meetings being held today. At the time of writing the report, we did not receive any submissions from the public. However, since the time of writing the report, we received 3 letters of from the public. One from a Miguel Cardenas stating that the current property is being rented to someone with a transport truck, and to maneuver in and out of the property, traffic is being blocked as it is a narrow entrance driveway. I assume with the metal shop, truck traffic will increase significantly. And their question is, are there plans to modify the entrance to allow for easier access? Secondly, will the metal shop be operating using hydro, or will they use a fuel generator? Received a letter of concern from Steve McCarthy, one regarding truck traffic. Traffic goes up in and out of the property now, tends to stop traffic to make the turn, since it's, in their opinion, a narrow driveway. Is the driveway safe for truck access? The operating hour seems excessive. Will trucks be entering at 7 p.m.? And will the operation be using electricity or a generator? Thirdly, from Stella Dallin, noise concern. Metal shops can be quite noisy with a lot of banging and crashing of metal. Smells, welding may produce unpleasant smells. Metal junk accumulation, nobody wants to live close to a junk yard. And though in general, they do like to see good use of lands and buildings, as long as their concerns are noted. Those, I said, 3 letters have received since the writing of the report and provided to council.
Thank you very much.
I will, go on, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, with a couple of things. As I mentioned, truck traffic and all the rest of it, we did, of course, in particular, circulate to county transportation with to see what their concerns are with their entrances. They do look for commercial entrance permits at times on certain properties, especially if they have a knowledge from doing their patrols and so on and so forth with the properties, and they didn't notice any particular changes required in terms of the operation. Yes, the driveway is narrow, but it's not like we have a continuous flow of traffic every day, every hour kind of thing, at which point they would look for a true commercial entrance to a property. Here with the, at least with the past usage, they haven't seen any need at the moment to change that around. They have full control over that, mind you, going into the future. And if they find that there is impediment to to traffic on the roadway, then they will address that directly with the property owner in terms of having a proper entrance for the volume of materials kind of going in and out of the property. The noise, and in particular, we certainly take a look at that in consideration. Both the county official plan in particular and the provincial policies require us to take a look at compatible uses, especially when we start to get into these light industrial kind of uses and where they're located. We do take a look at a guideline produced by the Ministry of the Environment, which provides a suggested setback, minimum setbacks in terms of industries and different types of industries. And what the guideline does is it takes a look at the intensity of the industry, the size of it. And as you can imagine, a large scale industry has bigger setbacks than a smaller scale industry. And this one here falls towards the small scale side of things. And the setback between the proposed use and existing residential uses of 168 meters would meet the policy guidelines produced by the Ministry of the Environment. We also, of course, have a little bit of buffer in terms of both trees and that, which helps both with in terms of the visual aspects of the property. We're not requiring any screening because of the trees and all the rest of it, how far it's set back from the roadway, and the fact that the building is on the roadway side of things, and the proposed storage and the rest of it is on the other side of the building. So providing additional screening wouldn't be of particular any use in this regard. And the trees and that, at least in the summertime, provide a very good visual buffer from that is going on. The change in the use is not actually significantly different from the welding and the hydraulic repair shop that is currently permitted on the property. Yes, there is probably more banging and metal going on, which is why, of course, we are reviewing it to the MOE guidelines in that regard. Overall, we find that the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, does meet the requirements of the County of Grey official plans in terms of the maximum size of an on-farm diversified use, considering the size of the property, and it does meet the general intent and purpose of your zoning bylaw. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
hello. My name is Margaret Adamic.
Excuse, we just a second.
Okay,
Was wanting someone from the applicant. We'll allow them first, and then I'll get right to you. Is anybody there to speak from the applicant side of this?
Can you hear me?
Yes, you are.
Solomon Martin. And I am the applicant.
Okay. You would like to say anything about this?
I don't have much to add. One thing I could note is that we turned the shop with the back towards the neighbors, and the doors are all on the north side, away from everybody, in hopes that there won't be much noise. And other than that, I don't have much to say,
Okay.
Answer questions if you want.
Well, we hope you'll stay online. There may be a couple. Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. Okay. Any comments from the public? And I did hear somebody, if you could identify yourself. Ashley will let you in. And I see our individual on the screen has two hands up now.
hello. I am the resident of 504105 Gray Road 12.
Excuse you, pardon, I didn't catch your name, ma'am.
I'm Margaret Adamic.
Margaret, okay.
Yes, hi. I have besides the other concerns that I have about the truck and the noise, I would like to ask the owner, like, when are the hours of operation? Are they going to be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or from 9 to 4? Or what would be the time of the operation? Because we are abutting to his shop, and we value our quiet neighborhood. So I'm wondering about that. That's one question that I have. And also what was brought up, the truck traffic. I'm noticing a lot of like the revving of the trucks when it's coming out of the driveway that the other people already complained about. And also I was wondering, like, if since this is being changed into an industrial area, I would like to know what about the residential taxes that the four of us that are in the front of that shop are doing. Are we going to get a tax reduction, or how will we be compensated for the added noise and things that we will have to endure now? Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to Mr. Martin. There was a question about time of operation. Can you give an answer for that, sir?
It's kind of hard because I'm not the owner, but usually they start at around 7 in the morning till around 5, and closed on statutory holidays and evenings, and usually closed weekends, I think. But as I say, I'm not the owner, so.
Okay, but you're speaking kind of as the applicant. So can I say that the operations would be 7 to 5, 5 days a week, or is it somewhat like other on-farm usage is 7 to 5, 5 days a week, and then Saturdays 7 till noon?
Yes, something like that, probably.
I'm gonna ask our planner, is that in the site plan?
It's not considered a land use consideration. Look at the land use. If you have bylaws regulating both noise and or business operation times, then we do. Same thing, for example, construction, right? Construction starts at a certain time of the morning, so on and so forth by your bylaws. The noise is bylaws what controls in some respects that aspect, as opposed to saying you can't operate, for example, on a Sunday. So we use noise as opposed to days of the week or times within that regard. We don't regulate our convenience stores and so on and so forth. They run the same way. So here we wouldn't be able to put zoning does not take a look at the time of day, looks at the appropriate use of the lands in relationship to things. Otherwise, we can run into problems with enforcement if we said, 9 till 5 or 8 till 5, whatever it is, and they happen to be 5:30. So we typically leave that to your noise bylaw.
Okay,
But the issue in my mind is that this is now going to become an industrial use, which is every single day. It's not like a construction where you start something and it finishes, where everybody can have patience and understanding. But this will be a full-on industrial type of a manufacturing situation, which I don't know, like when we moved into this area, we moved into hoping that we would have a quiet place to live, not that we would be having something banging on our heads every single day, for 12 months of the year. Like the changing of the zoning, like farming, it's like this, you do it 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, okay, finished. But this is every single day. This is not something that will end. And I think that it's devaluing our property, our type of living that we have. Is disrupting our enjoyment of our property, I think, very much so. Not just our house, but the people, all of us that are around in our little hamlet. Like there's quite a few people that are here. So it's not impacting one person, it's impacting about 7 or 8 families. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
okay, thank you, Margaret. There was a comment on the trucks. I think you had a question to that, or did you want to comment on that?
We just comment in general is that, we've seen, council's seen, it's not surprising that things in our lives change, right? And that's why you're here, to see about the appropriateness of a use in a particular location. And my job, of course, is to take a look at that and to say, here's the guidelines that we're given. We are given as a whole, right? So you expect me to implement those guidelines from the province, from yourselves, from the county, and so on and so forth, and in the correct way. And what we end up here, of course, is the province calls on-farm diversified uses, okay? Which are relatively still new, if you want to put it that way, within the provincial planning regime. Embedded into the county official plan is on-farm diversified uses as of right. Okay, at the moment, you require a zoning amendment in this municipality, but the new planning regime has it as of right with a particular list of uses, including the ones proposed here. As long as you begin to meet, as I mentioned, the setbacks expected for noise and so on and so forth, for some enjoyment of property, continued enjoyment of property. I'm not going to say you're not going to hear this. I'm not going to say they're not going to work on a Sunday or late at night, whether it's a grain dryer that's running or other things going on a farm and some farms, or whether or not it's going to be our on-farm diversified uses with a on-farm creamery with cars coming up and down the laneway 7 days a week because you're now selling goat's milk cheese. Those are the changes going on in our rural landscapes that we take in, and it supports us overall, and it supports the on-farm work that goes on overall. As long as, again, as I say, that it begins to meet some of the numbers. And that's particularly what we're concerned about. Can't sit here and just make up a number. It needs to be 400 meters away. Well, we wouldn't have anything in some respects. So the 168, yes, it's to the house. Yes, they're probably going to hear things, unfortunately. but it is a change in our neighborhoods and our right to use our properties for as much as possible before we begin to significantly impact on our neighbors. Okay? People moving in next door to you on a vacant lot is going to change your life. Okay? It's how much and the relief that they're requesting for. And here they didn't require the relief, just to change in the particular land use. So yes, unfortunately, the place where you moved into may not be exactly the same as it was 20 years ago. And I think that is the same for many of us. The impacts of excess noise and all the rest of it, again, we still do have a noise bylaw. Okay. Neighbors to neighbors, if you're having an outdoor barbecue for your parents or whatever it is, or for your family, ask your neighbors, like, would you mind not spraying on Saturday? Could you hold off on something? And then, and people being good neighbors probably take things into consideration. But yes, it's going to be a change.
Thank you. Margaret had one other question, and then I'll get to the gentleman on the screen. The other question was on taxation, on assessment. That's why I'm looking at the Director of Finance at the present moment for her to give an answer on that.
Yes, there's 5 main variables that determine a residential property assessment, but then there is also additional site features that may impact it to a lesser degree. One of those being an abutting or proximity to an industrial operation. So it'll just may depend on the extent of how much that changes. But that would be something that would go through the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation to determine that if it has had an impact on the value.
Okay, thank you very much, Carrie. Okay, I'm going to move on. We have someone online. Sir?
Hi. I'm a neighbor as well. I'm not opposing to a shop.
Just before we go, just need your name for the record, sir.
Absolutely. Miguel Cardenas. I'm the one that submitted one of the questions by email.
Yep.
I'm not opposed to the progress and to the use of the properties as seen fit. However, I do, with all due respect, want to point out that whoever the transportation person that say that the traffic is not being affected obviously has not been there at the right time, or when the current person renting the property that owns the transport truck that comes in and out only goes in and out one time a day because it's for work. He doesn't has a business there. No, there's nothing else. So, and even just that one time that he goes in, if there's traffic behind him, if there's vehicles coming, he has to pull to the side. He has to let people by and then attempts to go in because it's not an easy maneuver. So I'm not sure how or who was looking at this from the transportation department, but obviously they were there at the wrong time because the truck wasn't there, or coming in or coming out. Is a very obvious situation. There is also a divot on the road that prevents distance seen. So a car coming at full speed, encountering a truck stop in the middle of the road trying to maneuver also adds a level of danger to the situation. I'm not opposed to the shop. I'm saying that entrance has to be modified somehow to allow for that truck to either park on the one side of the road and go into the property, but it cannot be just stopping there. If we're gonna wait for an accident, then that's a different story. I'm not sure how to approach that. And also there was no answer with the level of noise. Is there a limit to the level of noise in decibels, and how is it measured, or how do we know that the level of noise is being met, the requirements? Also, there was no answer on the operations, a specific answer, as in I understand that there might be changes in the schedule, but the application mentions 7 to 7 weekdays except Sundays. So that's a 12-hour operation a day. And I'm possibly including Saturdays. I'm not sure if that includes Saturdays either. That's all I wanted to note. The other thing also, there was no answer to the, is there going to be a generator house, or is it going to be public utilities for providing the power to the shop? Because that makes also a difference in noise levels.
Correct. Probably we start with that question for Mr. Martin. On
Anyway,
power.
we will contact Curry County Transportation after, well, depending on your decision, to flag this particular location, as mentioned by the other two individuals online. And like I said, since it's the county road, we'll mention it to them and see where they pursue. Without any quote unquote data, if you know what I mean, one truck a week, one truck an hour, right, is far different, right? Kind of thing in terms of one truck a week. It's kind of like, the money, right? One truck an hour. And you got to remember, this is a 400 square meter shop. This is not the Fasco or anything you can think of in terms of being able to pump out that much in order to get that many trailer loads of things out per day, maybe per week, but per day, probably not. So, but we will mention it to county transportation depending on your decision today.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Martin, are you there? As far as there was a question on power and the noise that whether it be a generator, what noise that would, and or environmental concern.
Or if it will be public hydro, public utilities.
Yeah.
Yes, I am here. Yes, I would suspect there would be a generator, but there is an MOE approval that the county likes us to do, which somebody comes out and they test the air and the noise, and you have to meet pretty strict guidelines. So if there is a generator, they have to muffle it and so that you can hardly hear it. And for the hours, as I said, I can't really say exactly. And for that entrance and that truck, I will talk to the owner about that. We can upgrade that entrance. And for the truck, for that tenant that lives in the house, we can speak to him too about his truck and try to keep the noise down. I'm not sure. Is there more that I need to answer?
No, I think that's got it. David, do you have a comment?
Yeah, the property will go to site plan. I mentioned we wouldn't need a fence for visual, but we could take a look at it. Enclosure, whatever it is within whatever specs for a generator, if it's outside. A lot of, they can be outside. Sometimes it could be in a little bit of a shed. They do, of course, emissions, but that part of it, we can take a look with the property. As we all know, however, we can all put a generator on our property, right? Within that regard. So singling out this as generator or not is a little tough in that regard. It could be solar tomorrow for that matter. Maybe not a great option. But we'll take a look at the site plan with the owner and see where he would think if he's going to put a generator in, it would be located in that regard.
Just sorry to say, there is a huge difference between the size of a generator for running a welding metal shop than there is a generator for running a little house appliances.
Very true, Miguel. But I'm going to say that there are a number of other operations that, not necessarily in this municipality, but certainly in Grey County, Mr. Martin's point, through the county, meet noise and pollution requirements, and a diesel generator in comparison to a propane or natural gas generator, quite a variance as well too. But we will try and find those things out and take that under consideration in working with the site plan.
Thank you.
We don't actually use.
I have one more question.
Just Miss,
Yeah.
I'm going to let Mr. Martin, he wanted to make a comment first, and then I'll get back to you.
Sure,
Mr. Martin?
thank you.
Yes, we don't really use diesel generators anymore. We use propane or natural gas, and they're tier 4, so diesel is hard to meet tier 4, so they don't use them anymore.
And they are considerably quieter than what we heard before. Okay, thank you for that.
They also go inside our room with sound barrier, lined out with sound barrier, so you do hardly hear them.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, okay, thank you, Miguel. Margaret,
Yes,
would-
okay. I have one other question. If you go back, I don't know if you're able to access this satellite image of the property and the application. If you look at the actual red lines, that's fine. What is the thing that's on the side of it? I'm on the east side of the proposed building. There's some round circle. We're trying to figure out, is that a garbage dump or what is the purpose of that circular thing? Because our property butts right onto that, and we want to know what that is. Like, what is it?
Go to
Is it a
page-
mountain of garbage? A mountain of garbage? Is that where the disposal of garbage will be put, or what is that circle?
I think on page 43, is it?
I don't know. I just have the.
I'm going to ask Ashley to bring it up here.
Yes, okay. If you look at where the red mark for the shop is, that's fine. What is east of that? That circular thing, is that where the garbage dump will be or what? I would like to know what that is.
Mr. Martin is on.
Always
Yeah,
say, can say, Mr. Mayor, sorry, before Mr. Martin starts, is that the garbage enclosures for the quote unquote use, if they're using dumpsters, will be within the 4,000 square foot red square with the around the shop. How people dispose of their garbage after that on their property is in terms of residential, other things. It can vary across the municipality. But no, this is the circle is not part of the proposal in terms of being used for garbage, metal waste, or anything at all like that in terms of this. Most of these properties are fairly well kept in terms of the manufacturing side, since they are subject at times to other inspections in terms of waste disposal and things like that. But no, it's not part of this application. What it actually is, I'm actually not sure.
Okay, I'm just worried that it's some kind of leaching into the waterway, or because anyway, whatever. If you don't know, I don't know either. Maybe it's something that people could look into. Thank you.
I don't believe that it has anything to do with water, because I'm pretty sure in the report, David, correct me if I'm wrong, but conservation had no concerns with this application? Correct.
It
So
looks like a natural divot to the ground. I'm not sure.
I'm going to suggest that it's in Gunnell, which is fairly heavy aggregate, and it's a stone pile.
I think so too, yes, and I'm not even sure if it's there anymore. I'm thinking that might be cleaned up and might be in crop. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's just kind of a land thing that was once dug up for something before this owner had it. He just bought the farm last year. And this aerial was taken back in 2020 or whenever the Grey County. So it might not even be there. And if it is, it might be discontinued, but it's not a dump.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Hutchison. Doug?
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that we do have lots of diversified farm uses, and just that's another example. But I was curious, maybe our treasurer could just explain a little bit about the taxation on this property in terms of farming is taxed at one rate, residential buildings are taxed at another rate, and then this building, which will be industrial, would be taxed at a different rate. Is that correct?
Yes, it could be a different, the farm rate, there is a different rate for the farm dwelling, farm industrial, for on use. I'm trying to think of the terminology. But there's a different classification, for farm use, industrial or commercial on farm. So it might fall into that category, quite possibly, but the residential is taxed differently. Farmland is taxed at a lower rate. So it'll just depend on what the final, use of the property is then.
And impact will put that assessment level on it, at whichever one. Yep. Counselor Noon, Joyce?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering, and maybe it has no bearing, but with this industrial, I'm wondering if the number of employees that are needed for this industrial, if that makes any impact on the area, on the livelihood, like with extra transportation and so on and so forth. Maybe it doesn't, but it's just a question I was inquiring about.
That may be a question for Mr. Martin. The number of employees that are proposed or thought of working out of this facility.
I'm not sure. It used to be a maximum of 5 in Grey County, but they removed that to unrestricted, I think. But in a 400 square meter shop, there won't be like 10 employees, maybe 1, 2, 3, I don't know, but it's not going to have any significant change in 1 or 2 or 3 cars going in the morning and out at night, I don't think.
Okay, David?
So the A2 117 or 17 zone has been on the property for quite a few years. We did carry forward some of the provisions from that bylaw. And in particular, if you look on page 50 of your package, clause I, the home industry shall employ on site no more than 1 employee who does not reside on the lot. We usually don't get into that anymore, but this is a carry forward from the current A2 zoning on the property, and it speaks a little bit to the intensity of use. Doesn't say, of course, if you have a large family yourself, that you don't have a lot of employees, but in terms of offsite, this is where it's sitting at the moment in that regard. Speaks to, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor and others, it's a non-farm diversified use. It's support, some support of the agriculture. It can be a primary earner, don't get me wrong, you can make more from it than you're farming, but the idea is still to allow for that diversification within some bounds, and we did, like I said, carry forward a restriction on the employees, although it's quite difficult to enforce.
Okay, Joyce? Any other questions? Miguel, further?
One more quick question, but this is for the municipality. Changing the zone on a particular property, does changing this zone for the, let's call it the neighborhood, or is it just for that specific, like let's say is my house an industrial zone?
David, do you want to address that?
Or is it just remains within that property that applied for the change?
I
Something specific.
believe that we were going to restrict the A2 117 to the 4,000 square meters on the one drawing that they provided for site plan. That's it.
So it's very site specific. It's
Okay.
on that property, not on anything else around that property.
Okay, I just
Okay,
didn't.
Miguel? Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Very legitimate question. Anything else? There is a recommendation there. Do we have anybody that, we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Townsend, Doug? And Councillor Hutchison. Thank you. Doug, two. Any further comments or questions on the motion? gonna ask Deputy Mayor, are you still? He's left? Okay. Oh. Aiton is like that every once in a while. Sorry, I didn't, yeah, I just didn't know whether he was there or whether he had phoned back in. Okay. He's not available, but we still have quorum. That's no problem. All right. No further questions, and I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. All right. That bylaw, asking staff to prepare the bylaw to come forward. We'll see what requirements are in that at the next council meeting. Okay. And I believe that is it for today's agenda. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your participation. And with that, I'm going to call the meeting adjourned. With all
Thank you,
business done.
everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day. Yeah. Good seeing you.
You too. Thank you.